It had been 3 years since I last touched a pen with her name in my mind, and yet, tonight, something inside me refused to stay quiet. The world outside my window was asleep, streetlights glowing faintly through the mist, the distant hum of cars fading into the night. I sat at my old wooden desk, the one she helped me paint white on a summer afternoon, and opened a fresh sheet of paper. My hands trembled, not because of the cold, but because I already knew what I wanted to write. It wasn't just a letter. It was everything I never got to say. Before we start, please subscribe to the Tears and Truth channel, like this video, and comment your thoughts. The first line came slowly, "Dear Emma." I paused, staring at her name until the ink began to blur. It had been so long, and yet the letters still carried the same warmth they once did. She had been the kind of person who could walk into a storm and make it feel like spring. I still remembered the way she'd roll her sleeves up when life got hard. How she'd smile at strangers on the subway, how she'd collect small broken things, a chipped mug, a bent flower stem, and somehow make them beautiful again. We met when we were both trying to escape something, she from her past, and me from my own sense of failure. I had just lost my job, my confidence, and most of my faith in people. She was volunteering at a community center near my apartment, teaching art to children who couldn't afford supplies. One evening I stopped by to donate some old brushes, and she was there, sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by paint, laughter, and chaos. When she looked up and smiled at me, I felt like I'd stumbled upon sunlight in human form. She believed in little acts of kindness, not the big grand gestures you post online, but the quiet, invisible ones that only 2 people ever see. She'd leave notes on park benches for strangers to find. She'd buy an extra coffee just to hand it to someone waiting for the bus. When I once asked her why, she said, "Because we never know who's holding on by a thread, Daniel. Sometimes, one kind moment can stop a person from letting go." We started spending more time together, painting, walking, talking about everything and nothing. I never had to pretend with her. But life, as it always does, had other plans. Emma's mother fell seriously ill, and she had to move back to her hometown to care for her. She promised it was temporary. She promised she'd call every night. And she did, for a while. Until one day the calls stopped. At first I told myself she was just busy. Then, as days turned into weeks, I convinced myself she needed space. Months passed, and I learned through a mutual friend that her mother had passed away. I tried calling, writing, even visiting once, but she had moved away, leaving no address. It was as if she had vanished into silence. For a long time I was angry, not at her, but at the unfinished story she left behind. I didn't understand how someone so full of empathy could disappear without a word. I buried myself in work, friends, distractions, anything to stop the questions echoing inside me. But grief doesn't vanish when ignored. It only learns to whisper softer, so you start mistaking it for your own thoughts. Years went by before I found her name again. Not in a phone book, not in a letter, but in a small art exhibition at the community center where we first met. The exhibit was called "The Things We Leave Behind." I almost walked out when I saw her name on the wall, but something kept me there. Her paintings were like her, raw, beautiful, filled with quiet pain and hope tangled together. One of them stopped me cold. It was a painting of a desk, a letter, and a white mug with a crack down the middle, just like the one she used to drink tea from at my apartment. The caption below read, "For Daniel, who taught me that even endings can be kind." I didn't cry right away. I stood there surrounded by strangers, pretending to study the brushstrokes, pretending not to feel my heart unravel. Later that night, I walked home under the soft drizzle, and for the first time I realized she hadn't left without a reason. She'd left because she couldn't bear to say goodbye. Tonight, as I write this letter, I know I'll never send it. It's not meant for her anymore. It's meant for the part of me that kept waiting. I want to tell him that it's okay, that some stories don't need closure to matter, that loving someone and letting them go can exist in the same breath, that sometimes the people who change us the most aren't meant to stay forever. They're meant to teach us how to be more human. I remember once asking Emma if she believed people could heal. She smiled and said, "We never fully heal, Daniel. We just learn how to live kindly with our scars." I didn't understand it then, but I do now. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about remembering gently. The clock ticks past midnight, and I sign the letter with a simple thank you. I fold it neatly and place it inside the drawer beside her old scarf, the one she left behind that last day. I'll keep it there, not as a wound, but as a reminder that love, even when it ends, can still make us better. Outside, the rain has stopped. The streets are quiet. Somewhere in the distance, a train passes, heading toward a place I'll never know. I close my eyes, take a deep breath, and for the first time in years, I whisper into the silence, "Goodbye, Emma." Not the goodbye of anger, not the goodbye of loss, but the kind of goodbye that means thank you for everything, even the pain, because without her I would have never learned that waiting isn't always about someone returning. Sometimes it's about returning to yourself. And so, I turn off the lamp, leaving the letter unread and unsent, not because it doesn't matter, but because it finally does.